Suppose you have been recruited into one of the best medical schools within your region to continue with your great-grandfather's legacy. Now, suppose the school has a pledge for all its apprentices and healers that there shall be no affairs or relationships amongst healers and between healers and patients. But then you find yourself embroiled with an older man, an authority figure within the school, and now, no matter what you try to do, you cannot escape from his clutches. What would you do? Well, Paivepo. A long time ago in a faraway land, a young woman, Matirasa, arrived at a healer's training center nestled in the middle of a forest, armed with the dream of carrying on her great-grandfather's legacy. Mati's great-grandfather Murapi had co-founded the school over 70 reigns ago, and the school, called the Healer's Grove, had become nations renowned for not only producing the best healers in the region, but also innovatively and proactively producing medicines and treatments that had wiped out illnesses that had ravaged communities for years prior. On the day before Matirasa left for the Healer's Grove, her father had called and sat her down. "Mwanangu," the man said, his face beaming with pride. "You know as well as anyone here that your great-grandfather was the greatest of healers that ever lived. But despite his greatness, none of it was inherited by his 2 children and their 2 children after. You see, we all went to the grove to try our hand at medicine, but none amongst us had either skill or knowledge, and eventually the grove had to let us go. And then you were born, and even from a young age, we could see your aptitude in caring for the people around you. And we saw too how quickly you were able to grasp concepts, and we knew that it was you that had inherited Sekuru Murapi's gift. And 2, when we took you to Makoni, the remaining co-founder of the grove, she only had to see you from a distance to be satisfied that you were a healer. Now, child, the time has come for you to go and learn. Go there, shine, go there and remember the footsteps you are walking in and the sandals that you have to fill. Go and make us proud. The whole of the Murapi family is cheering you on and wants to see you win." And with these words, Matirasa had arrived at the grove, ready to make an impact as lasting as her great-grandfather's. Within weeks of her arrival, her presence had been felt. She was a quick learner, and whatever concept she learned, she would not waste time applying it on her own. She had walked into the grove with no knowledge of herbs, but her knowledge grew tenfold in less than a moon. And often, Makoni, the remaining co-founder of the grove, had called her to her heart to tell her how proud she was of her. "You are carrying your great-grandfather's legacy well. Keep it up, child. The grove is in safe hands with you in it." But despite the skill, the hard work, and the adoration that came her way, for the most part, Mati felt incredibly empty. Yes, she liked the grove, she admitted to herself, but it was insanely quiet. She had grown up in a loud, happy community where she was woken up at dawn by a competition between birds twittering and people gossiping as they walked to the fields or to the stream to fetch water. And as soon as she opened the door to her hut, she would be assaulted by passers-by calling out good mornings and waving at her. And the cacophony of human sounds would continue to ring in the village all day long. And 2, there was the attention. Being a beautiful girl, she had had her fair share of male attention. Whenever she had passed through a group of boys, she had heard their awkward silence, their collective intake and holding of breath, and only after she had passed them would she feel them breathe out. She knew they knew she had been chosen and could not be approached easily, but one boy had been brave enough to approach her. His name was Rujizo, and Mati found herself falling for his bravery, for his calmness, and she began to look forward to his accompaniment as she walked to and from the stream daily. But then one afternoon, her mother had seen her walking leisurely with the boy, and the woman had reported to her father, and her father had simply said, "It is time for you to go to the Healer's Grove before you shame us by eloping, or worse, by falling pregnant for the boy." Yet now here she was in the silence of the grove, in the emptiness that threatened to swallow her, and she longed for some wholesome human interaction. But there was a vow of dedication from amongst all the trainees and the healers, with everyone so engrossed in their work, in their patience. Yes, there was interaction during the shared meals, and on the day of Chisi, the designated day of no work, people would wear their best attires and gather at the dare that was at the far edge of the grove, and there sing sedate songs, dance languidly, and take in sips of beer. But after that, everyone would retreat to their hearts, and the silence would return, and Mati knew she was beginning to crave some human interaction, badly too. So it was no surprise that when one evening she was propositioned to by someone in the grove, she had wasted no time in making up her mind, despite the fact that the grove had a rule: no healer may love or have sexual relations with another healer. No healer may love or have sexual relations with a patient. Yet she deliberately chose to ignore this rule and flirt with danger just so she could bask in an adoration similar to the one she had received from Rujizo. The affair began when Mati was dancing with another young apprentice while everyone sat and chatted. It was then that she felt someone watching, and not just watching, but practically roaming up and down her body with their eyes. At first, she had tried to ignore the sensation of being watched, but it was sending a tingling sensation all over her body, and she decided to take a young glimpse to see who it was. And she was shocked, because it was the head healer Tangai, the man responsible for running the grove and the infirmary, the man who Makoni had told her was the greatest healer of the generation. Throughout that whole Chisi, Mati had then avoided him, going to dance and socialize at the peripheries of the gathering. Yet once in a while, she would steal a glance towards him, and always she found him watching. And in that heartbeat that their eyes would meet, he would offer her a small smile, but she would quickly look away, trying to stop the stirring in her heart, and rationalizing to herself, "He is an old man. He could even be older than your father. Stay away from him." And Mati had been relieved when it was nightfall and the Chisi gathering had begun to dissolve, and one by one people began to retreat to their hearts. It was only after she had closeted herself in her heart that she leaned against the door and allowed her flushed body to cool down by telling it, "Relax, he is just an old man." A knock had startled her an hour later, and she had quickly rushed to the door, thinking that she was needed at the infirmary. But she had been startled to find the head healer standing by the door and smiling at her in the light of the starry night. "Good evening, healer," Tangai said. "Good evening, sir," Mati responded, thrown off by his smile which he did not wear often as he ran the grove as though it were a military camp. "I brought you this," he said, handing her a bag of dried mara meat. "I always reserve some for the best dancer at our gatherings, and tonight you were the best dancer by far. Keep it up," he finished, turning and walking away into the night. He knocked again the following night and brought with him some dried mashuku and told her, "Please don't tell anyone about this. You know how jealous they can become, and then I will not be able to extend any more favors to you." He knocked again and again, almost every night, and always with a gift. This is for outperforming everyone in the herbs class, he would say, or he would say, you handled that patient well. Here is a little token for your excellence, but be sure not to tell anyone. And over, she accepted these little thoughtful gifts that made the grove seem less lonelier and more welcoming. Until the night he knocked, then peeped into her heart. What is that homely smell coming out of your heart? He asked. Oh, Mati responded, it's just some Zumbania tea. I brought some leaves from home because it is my favorite brew. Ah, Tangai said, it's been a while since I had Zumbania tea. They stood by the door awkwardly for a couple of heartbeats before Tangai said, are you going to invite me to come share the brew with you or not? Mati giggled nervously, but moved from the door. She knew, as Tangai stepped over the threshold, that she had already committed a big mistake by allowing him in her heart, for there was another rule. No male healer or trainee shall enter the room of a female healer or trainee unless the female is ill and is being treated in her heart. But then, she reasoned to herself, this man was the head healer, and he knew these rules better than she did, and had even sat at the drafting of these rules. Yet as she closed the door and stole a glance at him, she saw him already getting comfortable in the heart like he owned it. She poured some for him, adding a dollop of honey, before handing it to him and going to sit opposite him by the fire while she hugged her calabash of tea. She avoided his intense gaze and did all she could to look into the flames. The only sounds in the hearts for a while were the crackle of the fire, the seeps from calabashes, the gurgling of throats, and even though Mati was blushing inwardly, she could not help but wonder when he would leave. Yet Tangai did not leave, and after what seemed like an endless silence, he said quietly, has anyone told you how beautiful you are? Mati did not raise her head and continued to stare into her calabash, knowing fully well that just that one sentiment had led to boundaries being smashed. Tangai chuckled, then stood. Well, let me be going, beautiful, but know that you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. He had walked to the door and his hand was on the handle when he called out softly, Matirasa? Mati raised her head and leaned up at him shyly. Huh? I have been here for over 20 years, he said, and I have followed all the precepts of the grove religiously, but ever since the day I saw you, he inhaled loudly, I have been tempted to let go of it all and to be with you. He was quiet for a while, then finished. It is as if all the love that I have suppressed in me all these years because of my calling here burst out when I first saw you. And now you have this old man enchanted. Anyway, let me not take up any more time, but please don't breathe anything I have said to you to anyone, please. Martin nodded and watched as he quietly opened the door and slipped out into the night, closing the door softly behind him. It took her a long while for her breathing to return to normal, but even then, her mind continued to whir, and she was not sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing. It did not help Mati that she did not see him again for 2 weeks. At first, she was glad he was not around and had gone to attend to a kingdom that had been recently embroiled in war and had had several casualties. Him not being around made her calmer, for she had been afraid how she would face him the following day after his confession. But as the days weaved into each other and still she did not see him, an ache had risen in her heart, and even though she tried to dispel it, it got stronger with each passing day. And even though it was hard to admit to herself that she wanted to see him again, she knew it was the truth. So it was no surprise that when a soft knock sounded on her door one rainy evening, she had run to her door giddily, knowing exactly whose knock it was. The moment Tangai stepped into her threshold, she had quickly closed the door and jumped into his ready arms. Okay, he laughed as he carried her to the fire. What have I done to be received with such energy and joy? I missed you, Mati said, then immediately regretted her effusiveness. Ah, my beautiful love, he said, if I had known I would be missed this much, I would have gone with you. But not to worry, next time I have a trip out of the grove, I will take you with, okay? She nodded shyly and asked if he wanted some Zumbane tea, and when she had handed him his calabash, this time he refused to sit opposite her and came to sit on the same tiny bench with her, forcing their bodies to be in the same proximity. She could feel how his presence, his scent, filled the air of her tiny heart, and it made her excited. She knew he was too old for her, but then how many girls did she know in her kingdom who had married older men as second or third wives? She would not be the first nor the last person to love an older person, and therefore there was nothing wrong with it. She was startled, however, when his low baritone voice spoke and filled her heart again. So, what does this make us? Does it mean that you are now mine? Mati looked up at him and smiled. Yes, then quickly looked down. Oh, my love, he said, putting his calabash down and then taking her hands in his. Thank you for making me a happy man. I have, my entire life, never known what love is, and I am grateful to you for filling my heart with so much joy at this old age. I promise to hold this love tender and to make you the happiest woman in this grove ever. She smiled at him and said, Please, promise me you won't tell anyone. Makoni will immediately let my parents know if I transgress in this grove, and I am sure my father will come to drag me back home by my nose. I would never jeopardize your career, my love, he said, patting her hand again. This will be our little secret, okay? She nodded. And I will let you in on a little secret. Makoni intends to retire from your position as great healer soon, so she rests for the rest of your days. She has promised to relinquish the position of great healer to me. That means I will be in charge of this grove and everyone in it. Once I am great healer, I will change this archaic law that your great-grandfather and his cronies put in place and will allow for right-thinking people to be in relationships. And then you and I will be free and we will marry and become the Grove royalty couple. Okay? Mati nodded and smiled, already envisioning their big day in the future. And so their secret romance began. During the day, each dedicated their time to their work. They would meet in the infirmary, in the paths along the grove, in the grove's canteen, at the grove's morning assembly, and they would barely acknowledge each other. Tangai maintained his assumed demeanor, rude, hostile, and even when they worked on the same cases, he was not averse to calling Mati out for slackness, or being rude at her just because it was who he was known as, or scolding her in front of other trainees. Lax hands, patients will suffer under your slow care. And Mati would roll her eyes behind his back like she always did after his rants, and the other trainees would stifle their giggles. Yet once they were alone in her heart, they would be all over each other, frolicking enthusiastically and reveling in the aftermath of their love. He would not come to see her every day because, as he said, I am a busy man. There are so many things to attend to in this grove. Difficult patients, difficult healers, difficult infrastructure, difficult suppliers. But rest assured, my love, each time I am away from you, you will be everything I am thinking of. Okay? And Mati too missed him a lot when he was away and looked forward to the moments that they would inevitably be together. Time moved, and before Mati knew it, she had been in the grove for 2 reigns and was now entering her final year of training, and she would become a fully fledged healer. Her romance with Tangai had only grown stronger in the last two rains, and she was grateful for the bitter Jarare root that she chewed on each night, which made it difficult for her to conceive, but which made their love easier. She had also become an expert with herbs and potions, and somehow, by serendipity, she had managed to concoct the perfect aphrodisiac, which made their love something to look forward to. But in that third reign, something shifted in their love, and at first, Mati struggled to understand what it was. Tangai had not only become evasive, what with his sporadic visits and his refusal to stay for long when he visited, but he had also become lethargic, and his movements in her bed, despite the generous dollops of aphrodisiac she poured into his tea, were lazy at best. "What is it, my love?" Mati asked him over and over again, but his response was always, "There is just too much work to do. The great healer Makoni never does anything these days, and your workload has shifted to my shoulders." But after tolerating his behavior for over 2 weeks, Mati had cornered him one afternoon in the infirmary. There was no other healer or trainee around. She was on ward duty while everyone else was at lunch, and she had not found any other time to ask him this, as he had only been to see her once, but he had been in a hurry then. "Do you not love me any more, Tangai?" she asked him now as she stood before him, blocking his way. His eyes darted around the infirmary, then he whispered, "How can you think that, my love? Of course I love you, but there is something happening here in this grove that is troubling me. I will try to come tonight and tell you all about it, okay?" That night, he came way past the middle of the night, during the times the spirits would traverse the land. She was still awake, her heart too heavy for her to sleep, when she heard his signature knock, and she had quickly rushed to open the door. And then, this time sitting opposite her by the fire, he told her what was troubling him. "It is the new girl," he said, "Yemurai." Mati was quiet for a while, searching his eyes for more cues. Then finding none, she asked, "You like her?" He smiled, and Mati softened as she listened to his next words. "Of course not," he said. "Why would I like a random girl in this grove when I have the most beautiful of them here by my side? Huh? No, my love, I don't even like her, but I fear her." "What do you mean you fear her?" she asked. He sighed and rose and started pacing the length of his small hut. "There is something off with her," he said. "You know I come from a family of witches and wizards, right?" he asked and continued after she nodded. "Of course I relinquished all these evil practices when I came to the grove, and I have striven to turn my gifts into healing, into changing patients' lives. But that does not mean that I have forgotten to spot a person who is on the dark side. I know a witch when I see one, and I know that the girl's presence here is a signal of horrible things to come. This grove might be changed by that one person if we do nothing to safeguard it. And I have just been cracking my head this whole time, trying to figure out why she is here and what she said to Makoni to convince the old woman to let her in, even though it is not trainee recruitment season yet." Mati nodded. She too, like Tangai, had wondered at Yemurai's appearance at the grove, for her recruitment had been off-season, and too, it was said that she had escaped from witchcraft allegations from her home. But besides that, Mati had not even cared for the girl, and had gone on with her life. Yet now that Tangai had raised allegations that the girl was a witch, Mati was inclined to believe him. "My love," Tangai said now, "I need your help. I need you to befriend the girl. Just suss her out, and if you hear or see anything suspicious, please let me know. We can't have people like her in the grove. This is a place for healing." Mati, who had not had any serious friends in the grove because everyone saw her as uppity, especially being related to the co-founder as she was, and who herself had always been full with the interactions with Tangai, did now as her lover told her. She drew the younger woman in, taking time to teach her too of what she knew. By the end of the first 2 weeks, Mati was tired of the constant interaction with the girl. I have never had a friend, Yemu had told Mati, so it feels special to me to meet someone who thinks like me. So the new girl would follow Mati everywhere, sit by her side at the morning assembly, walk with her to the infirmary or to the dispensary, follow her at ward rounds, and sit with her in the canteen, a constant presence that Mati had begun to resent. She is harmless, Mati told a still agitated Tangai 2 weeks after the task. I don't know why you are so uneasy over her. But Tangai shook his head. All is not what it seems, he said. Just keep her by your side, and we will see then. Mati was to discover how right Tangai was in the 3rd week, when Yemu came to knock at your door frantically one early morning. Please help, Yemu said, pointing towards her hut. Mati, excited for some action, ran with the girl to her hut to find in it a severely injured and bleeding man lying on the floor. Yemu, Mati gasped, we are not allowed strangers here. It's policy. I know, Yemu cried out, but I couldn't leave him alone. Please, help me save his life. Mati, partly excited to have something to report back to her lover, rushed back to her hut to get the healer's kit, then back to Yemu's to help with the patient. That night, she did not sleep a wink, excitement coursing through her body, waiting for Tangai to return so she could relay the news to him. He did not come. The next day, she saw him as he talked to some of the elder healers and tried to give him a cord that she had some news, but he did not get the cord. And unfortunately, that night as she tended to the patient in Yemu's heart, Makoni had busted them, then commanded them to carry the injured man to her hut and keep the thing a secret. Mati knew then that if she told her lover, Makoni would suspect her, and therefore, when she next saw Tangai, she said nothing of Yemu's shenanigans. Yet as luck would have it, Tangai came to her a couple of days later and said, that Yemu girl is up to something. I know it, but I don't know what it is. You know, my mind tells me that she is hiding a valuable artifact, an artifact that, if it is known lies in this grove, will bring war and destruction. My visions never miss, Mati. That girl will destroy us all. I know. But Mati interrupted him. She had witnessed Yemu remove a crest from the injured man's throat, and now it was Yemu who wore this crest. The injured man had gifted it to her for safekeeping. I know she has it, Mati said excitedly now. It is a crest for the Zero Kingdom. I wanted to tell you about it. Tangai stopped there and said, what? But then a frantic excitement had risen in his eyes too, and he said, can you get it for me, my love? You can steal it from here while she sleeps or something, please? Mati nodded and was excited when that night Tangai seemed to have returned to his usual touchy, affectionate self and reveled in the coziness she had missed for moons. She wanted everything to return to normal between her and Tangai, and if getting the crest meant normalcy, then goodbye fake friendship. So the next morning, she visited Yemu, and after chatting for a while, she looked pointedly at the crest which hung from Yemu's neck, then asked, is it heavy, the crest? No, Yemu laughed. It's not. Half the time I don't feel like I'm wearing it. Mati nodded, then said, can I touch it? Yemu shrugged, then unclasped the golden chain it sat on before handing it to her friend. As she took it into her hands, Mati hoped that she could hide the excitement in her eyes. All that rushed through her brain was how excited Tangai would be when she returned with the crest to him. You know what? she said now to Yemu. There is a safe in this grove where all the sacred grove items are hidden. There are only 3 keys to that safe. One belongs to Makoni, another to me as I am the great-granddaughter of Murapi, and another with the Muwoni family, that is, with the co-founders and their families. What do you say I go and safekeep this for you in case those vagabonds who were looking for the injured fugitive come again? She could see the uncertainty in Yemu's face, but Mati smiled wider, hoping the smile would come off as trustworthy. And then Yemu finally nodded and said, "It's okay, my friend." To be continued. Hi there. I know if this is the first story you are watching in this series, you are a bit confused because of the ending, but I promise you that the stories in the playlist above will fill in all the gaps. So please do click above and enjoy. Thank you for passing by, and if you can, please leave some love in a like, a comment, or a subscription. But otherwise, that's it for me this week. See you in the next one soon. Lots of love and goodbye.